Good morning, students. Today we will talk about the third type of our rocks, the metamorphic rocks. And we need to know at the beginning what does it mean, metamorphism, the process by which the rocks change to metamorphic rocks. So metamorphism, the word metamorphism comes from the Greek. Meta means after and morph means form. So which means is after form, the change of the rock from form to completely different form. So the change in mineral assemblage and texture will result from subjecting a specific rock to specific conditions such as pressure, temperature, and chemical environments. Okay, so there are many types or several types of metamorphism as a process. We will take some here. The first one is called contact metamorphism. Contact metamorphism, from its name, there is something is in contact with something else. So here we mean the intrusion coming from the magma chamber get in contact with the surrounding rocks, and because this intrusion is very hot, so the temperature will transfer to the surrounding rocks and affect their shape and composition. So it happens, this kind of or this type of metamorphism happens adjacent to igneous intrusions and results from high temperature associated with this intrusion. As you can see from this figure, in the middle you can see the igneous intrusion and increasing of the temperature toward the intrusion, and this gray area is the affected area or where the metamorphic rocks are formed. We call this area the metamorphic aureoles, and it depends on the size of the igneous intrusion and the composition of the adjacent rocks. And since only a small area surrounding this intrusion is heated by this magma, so the metamorphism is restricted only to this area, to this zone surrounding the intrusion. That's why we call it metamorphic or contact aureole. So outside of this contact aureole, rocks are not affected. So the contact metamorphism, there's a grade of metamorphism. This increases in all directions toward the intrusion. As long as you travel to the intrusion, you will find the metamorphism grade is high and high. Of course, when you have intrusion and the surrounding rocks are like, for example, shallow or like sedimentary rocks, the temperature contrast between the intrusion and the surrounding rock is very high, is big, at specifically or especially at shallow levels in the crust. So you have less pressure here and high temperature. So the contact metamorphism, in this case, we call it high temperature, low pressure metamorphism. And the types originated by this process called Hornfelds. So the rock produced is often a fine-grained rock that allows no foliation. We don't have any foliations here. We call this type of rock is Hornfels, and here is a picture of Hornfels. Okay, what else? The second type of metamorphism is called regional metamorphism, and from its name it means it extends to a large area, region. So it happens over large areas and does not show relationship to igneous bodies, and it results in forming metamorphic rocks that are strongly foliated, such as slates, chests, and gneiss. Slate, chest, and gneiss, these are three rocks are really foliated metamorphic rocks, and they belong to the regional metamorphism type. Here is the slate, and this is the chest, and this is the photo of gneiss. And the differential stress causing this metamorphism usually results from tectonic forces. Here is not a contact metamorphism. Here the factor is tectonic forces that produce compressional stress. Example of that, when you have two continental masses collide. And regionally metamorphosed rocks occur in the core of fault thrust mountain belt or eroded mountain ranges. These are like some pictures of metamorphic rocks. And the third type of metamorphism is called cataclastic, or sometimes we call it dynamic metamorphism. And from its name, it gives us the impression that it includes a movement. It's as a result of mechanical deformation, dynamic or mechanical, like when two bodies of rock slide past one another along, for example, a fault zone. This is an example of dynamic metamorphism, the subduction zone where the oceanic crust sinks underneath the continental crust because of its high density. And heat is generated by the friction of sliding. You know, we have those two slides, they meet each other and they slide against each other. There is a friction of sliding along such shear zone, and rocks are mechanically deformed. Mechanically deformed, they change in shapes. There will be an elongation even in minerals or crystals. And this type is not very common and is restricted to a narrow zone along which shearing happens. And cataclastic metamorphism is generally localized as along fault plains, and they produce sheared and highly deformed rocks. We call this type of rocks here myelonites. So whenever you talk about cataclastic metamorphism, you talk about myelonite rocks, as you can see from the picture, and you see the change of the crystal shapes because of the movement. Okay. Another type here of metamorphism called hydrothermal metamorphism. And hydrothermal metamorphism means it gives us a clue about, like, you have like solutions here, mineral solutions, and rocks that are altered or changed at high temperature and moderate pressures by hydrothermal fluids. We call them hydrothermally metamorphosed. Hydrothermally metamorphosed. It is common in basaltic rocks and generally lack hydrous minerals. The hydrothermal metamorphism results in alteration, change to such magnesium iron rich hydrous minerals like talc, chloride, serpentine, actinolite, tremolite, zeolite, and clay minerals. So we have several types of metamorphism. We have contact metamorphism, regional metamorphism, cataclastic metamorphism, and hydrothermal metamorphism. In our next lecture, we will talk about the types of metamorphic rocks. And we have to keep in mind that ridge or deposits are often formed as a result of this type of hydrothermal metamorphism. Okay, and we will learn also about the types of metamorphism regarding their mineral, either mineral-like composition or their shapes, or like foliated rocks or non-foliated rocks. Have a nice day and see you then. Bye.